Sabrina 90s comic, issue 17. Harvey reveals that he's playing the drums in one of the groups for the big Battle of the Bands contest at the beach. Do beaches really have those? I mean, what if it rains? They wouldn't have to worry about being cancelled if they did it indoors. Harvey looks way too much like Reggie when he looks confident. Sabrina says that's cool and is eager to see him perform, and asks which band he's in. I guess the band is really recent since you think his girlfriend would already know that. Then he gets nervous, and Amy runs up to him happily, and it turns out he casually betrayed Sabrina by agreeing to drum for her band. Sabrina says she can play an instrument because she played the tambourine in her grade school chorus. She's dumb for sure. At least she wasn't dumb enough to say that, oh, I can play the saxophone even though I was terrible at it earlier. Amy says condescendingly that if she hears of anyone that needs an amateur tambourinist, she'll let her know. Sabrina should have mentioned the story where she played a saxophone. Maybe the guy couldn't even hope to teach her to be good at it, so she gave up. Amy drags Harvey by the arm to practice with him, and Sabrina goes home, and Zelda says that when she opens and closes the door magically, she knows she's miffed. Why doesn't she simply teleport straight home? She leaves witnesses for her magic all the time and never cares. Sabrina wastes her time venting to Zelda about something we already saw. Then Zelda happily advocates Sabrina cheating by using magic to play an instrument. And Sabrina says she still needs a band. Zelda and Hilda reveals that they were in a band once, but it's a medieval band, with them casually bringing their bandmates back from the dead just to sing one note each. And yeah, it's kinda odd that bringing people back from the dead isn't against the witch rules, because it's such a significant thing, and Salem did it no problem. It turns out they were known as the Magical Maidens of the Middle Ages. Pretty long name for a band. I guess they used magic to brainwash people into being fine with women having a job back then. Ancient times were a point in history where men played the women's roles in plays and in operas. It turns out that they weren't actually that popular. She doesn't explain that's because she and Zelda were women though, so who knows. Sabrina turns her aunts down, having to explain to them that teenagers wouldn't like their music. And Hilda and Zelda want to go back in time and play music for the troops in the Battle of Hastings, risking getting hurt in the process. Salem asks why Sabrina won't find a good band to join, and says that he's sure she could convince them. Sabrina says that if she shows up with a professional band, she'd win, and Salem checks the paper to see who's in the area. It should have been explained right away that the reason she actually cares about using a band that's in the area is that she doesn't want to seem too suspicious, since she could technically zap up any band she wanted from anywhere. As was given away by the title, the band in question is Josie and the Pussycats, who have a comic themselves. So Sabrina warps over to them. Sabrina uses a spell to brainwash them into making her a band member, with the blonde girl wanting to hold and pet Salem because she thinks he's cute. So does she sing everything she says because that's literally the only way she can talk? Sabrina somehow still has her heart set on being a mere tambourinist for them. So won't Amy still make fun of her? Wow. You'd think that in a crossover, somebody would lampshade the fact that there's a girl who's always singing, because that really needs explanation. Sabrina asks them to perform at her beach this weekend, and when she's told that they have concerts scheduled, the phone magically rings, and they celebrate because their concerts for the rest of the week have been cancelled. The entire week is really overkill. How much money did they miss out on? They must be really sick of work, to the point where they don't even care about making extra money. One of them even celebrates getting a break. Then Sabrina says that they can stay with her and her aunts for a few days. So she's not doing this on the day of the Battle of the Bands? That's padding. The redhead says that it'll be nice being in a home because hotels are cold. Hilda's annoyed that the band is Sabrina's replacement for her and Zelda. Fortunately, one of them says that they don't mean to intrude, which is polite. Sabrina invited them to stay here so they could practice for Saturday. Why would they need to practice? Sabrina uses magic and says that there are guest rooms in the practice holes in the East Wing. I can't help but be bothered by this story. It comes off as a self-indulgent story where the writer wishes that he was Sabrina. And granted, Sabrina is always an escapist character, and the whole series is an escapist fantasy. But it's especially obvious here. Maybe because usually the issues focus on punishing Sabrina for being a witch. The story feels a bit like it's dragging out with this especially unrealistic premise. But she is a witch, so Of course she can do whatever she wants. Of course it'd be unrealistic. Like, I'm only gonna get really mad if there's a plot hole or a character being completely unlikable. Then we see Morton go out for a morning swim, or rather, he lies down on something floating in his pool. Then he hears the band practicing, and complains about noise pollution instead of appreciating the music, so he decides to contact the authorities. To be fair, he did want to relax, and maybe it really was that loud. I know how he feels. Sabrina fortunately thinks to magically get rid of the addition to her house without knowing that Morton already noticed. So her forethought is rewarded because the cop doesn't believe Morton. Can you imagine if he had a cell phone? How is he supposed to know he has to take a picture of it before it'll disappear? Well, he'll know now. For the first time in ages, we see a comedy page, where Sabrina comes in from a hot day wanting something cold. Hilda tells her to help herself to the groceries, and she tries to eat an ice cream bar, but then it screams because they went shopping at Witch Mart. Sabrina naturally hates it, as I wonder why in the world anyone would make ice cream bars like that and put it in the food aisle instead of in a prank material store or something. The sales on that ice cream would be abysmal. And at least Sabrina being stuck with the lame, fake instrument is some kind of punishment balancing out what she did. Because she could have easily played the saxophone with magic again. And I understand why the main characters are fine with her brainwashing these poor people. She's not doing anything to hurt them or humiliate them. And I know I can trust her not to stay with the band permanently. That would be worse. Zelda's considerate, telling them all to get a good night's sleep for the Battle of the Bands. Sabrina uses magic to give them their rooms, and Morton tells his wife that the wing on their house is back. And I wish I got to see him show her the wing, but no. I wish that panel didn't exist. Or he had a thought bubble where he thought that the east wing would just disappear again if he tried to prove it existed. Sure, it's a shame he's too stupid to think to take a picture of it. But I guess someone would insist that it was a picture of a different house, and accuse him of getting it from a book or the internet. Then Karma randomly decides to bite Sabrina because the lead vocal gets laryngitis. Sabrina accuses her aunt, and then out of complete nowhere, Hilda says that witches can't affect a mortal's medical condition, good or bad. I call bullshit on that. Aren't witches known for curses? I can understand the Witches' Council using magic to make it impossible for witches to use magic to make people sick, because no duh. But for them to outlaw magic making people feel better would only be explained by some really shady conspiracy where the people making money off of the sick insist on it so they won't lose their jobs. But witches would have been sapping away illnesses since the caveman days. Wouldn't they have been doing it to themselves instead of going to somebody else? Wouldn't they have erased people's memories? Also, Hilda talks as if they can affect a witch's medical condition just fine, just not a mortal's. Mortals don't seem that biologically different from witches. There would be no financial incentive for the witches' big pharma to demand this to become the case, because they wouldn't be making money off selling medicine to mortals. I wish it was explained that Hilda was lying and she really did give Josie laryngitis to make Sabrina the lead singer. Sabrina is giving karma again because she sings terribly. Never mind, Hilda uses magic to make her a great singer. And part of the spell has her sing every word she says, for no reason. It's just self-indulgent to make Sabrina the lead singer. It's clearly unnecessary. Morton apparently didn't learn his lesson from last time. And then after Amy starts playing in a band trying to steal Harvey from Sabrina. So I guess Amy lost her last boyfriend, and I wish I saw that. Sabrina summons a tidal wave to immediately shut her up. Tidal waves kill people. Good thing Sabrina magically controlled it precisely so that there'd be no casualties. I call absolute bullshit on the guy skipping over Amy's band completely. That's not how it works. He should know that it's not very fair to her. He should have at least explained that it'll take so long to clean off the stage that there'll be no time for Amy's band to play. After all, if they stepped on a wet stage, they'd slip. Also, it sure was nice for Sabrina that the band name was changed to Sabrina and the Pussycats. But I guess after all the stupid bullshit she's been through just because she's a witch, she kinda deserves a happy day in the limelight for once. Fortunately for us, the story cut past most of Sabrina's song. If this was a TV show, we would have been forced to sit through the whole thing. And while it would probably sound nice, I'd want to skip it because it destroyed the pacing of the plot. And Sabrina is embarrassed a little because she's forced to sing when talking to Harvey and says Marvy is a rhyme. Though it's not too mean to her because we don't see Harvey's reaction. There's consequences to Josie's laryngitis because she'll need plenty of rest before the next week's concert. Then Sabrina is humiliated a little more because her constant singing annoys one of the band members. Though fortunately she was polite enough to not insult her to her face. Because bullshit, it turns out that Sabrina will have to wait days for the singing spell to wear off. I wish it was explained that the Witches' Council intentionally changed the spell to be this way to punish anyone who used it like Sabrina did to cheat, while being nice enough to still allow people to use the spell at all because the singing would sound nice. That also has to be why the spell forces people to sing whatever they say. It's a punishment from the Witches' Council to deter the spell being used, so people can't rise to the top of the music charts with it without getting caught. That should be explained though, because it just looks ridiculous without thinking about it. Then I giggled at seeing that Morton's camping out to catch your aunt's adding that wing on her house tonight. He just doesn't get it. It's a nice subversion that took until later for him to complain that she was singing to him. He calls her a nutcase, but at least it's not to her face. I can't imagine why Sabrina said anything to him after he told her that he was camping out. Morton lampshades that he should have moved into a retirement community instead of here. Then it turns out that the blonde woman from the band was called by Salem because she gave him her phone number, not thinking things through. And now she's not seeing everything she says anymore. Wait, so it got annoying that Sabrina was doing it, but not Blondie? I wish they reminded us of the names of most of the bandmates more often, because I forgot them immediately. I didn't feel like memorizing them. It's a shame because the blonde is the only one with an actual personality, so if anyone deserves a name, it's her. For once, a name tag in every section of the story would be a good idea. This out-of-nowhere story was by Bill Gallagher. While it probably wasn't horrible by any means, I felt like it dragged out too long. Well, go figure, because it was nothing but one story the whole issue. That's not something Sabrina should ever do. It started to feel like self-indulgent escapist writing where Sabrina was who the writer wished he was. Sabrina uses her magic to cheat at the Battle of the Bands competition to spite Amy for Harvey playing at her band. Being nice enough to not want revenge on Harvey too, at least. But still, it's kind of weird that the whole reason the plot happens is because Harvey betrayed Sabrina for Amy for no reason. So she brainwashes Josie and the Pussycats into feeling like asking her to join their band. At least she was stuck to the tambourine at first, and she was humiliated by a spell forcing her to sing everything she said. But it crossed the line that the band spent a few days practicing in her house, when they clearly were too talented to need practicing, and that Sabrina was the lead singer for them. That was unnecessary. At least it was focused on being really nice to Sabrina instead of the musicians. It would be annoying if the musicians really stole the spotlight, but instead Sabrina was competent the whole time instead of feeling like she was robbed of her agency. The lead singer even got laryngitis. It's better than her being forced to look like a clown and turn people into clowns by accident. I actually giggled at the story because Morton decided to camp out to prove that the east wing of the house was real. So it was kind of funny.